Hello, this is Chris Goldthorpe with chess.com. This video is for players of the white pieces who are beginners and who wish to play the Ruy Lopez in scholastic tournaments. So, first we need to know what the Ruy Lopez is. If you look at this position we have here, this is the Ruy Lopez. It normally comes up with this move order in almost no other way. If you are a new scholastic player, you may find that you have better luck, better results against your competition by, instead of playing the Ruy Lopez, playing d4, the Scotch game, or bishop to c4, aiming at this vulnerable pawn. But we'll leave that issue to the side. When you play this move, there are two replies which are most popular with black. This one, the Morphy variation, and knight f6. Now, the advantage of this system is that this pawn, this gains a tempo here, and it will support the b pawn when the b pawn goes to b5 to remove white from this diagonal and to take away permanently the option of capturing the knight, which guards the pawn that the white knight attacks. So there has to be a drawback, or black would always only play this variation among strong players, which is not the case. What is the drawback? Well, the drawback is that later on black will have a pawn out here at b5 and white can attack it with his queen going to e2 and moves like a4. Still in all, I think a6 or knight f6 are black's strongest alternatives. Now, when black plays the Berlin defense, which if the bishop were here, we'd call this the two knights defense, but in the Ruy Lopez, we call this the Berlin defense. Certainly, it has some important differences. Sometimes in scholastic chess, white will go here, and he's just transposing from a four knights game where the bishop goes out to b5 after all four knights are there. So I don't recommend that. I recommend that you castle here. Now, black has a few moves, but by far the most common is this one, and it's about the only move you're going to see in scholastic chess. White should not play rook e1 here. He should just go ahead and play d4. Now, if you're a beginner and you're learning an opening like the Ruy Lopez, your knowledge will necessarily be very superficial. So don't let the fact that it is dissuade you from remembering some sequence of moves, because the more you play it, the more you'll start to really understand the moves you play, as well as how to refute certain bad continuations that you'll see from various different ratings groups. Black goes back here, attacking white's bishop. Black would very much like to trade a knight for this bishop. And since white may have to do so anyway, he'll just go ahead and take there. Usually we see in the Berlin variation, we see something like he takes, and then he takes back, and then the knight moves, and they trade queens. Players of the black pieces who never saw this before are thinking, what? You want me to not be able to castle? Well, black does okay in this position. It's got good statistics. So, we only need to know up to about move 6 for this video. So we just looked at this. Castles, knight e4, d4. Knight d6, bishop takes c6. All right, look at the a6 line. I recommend to back up. Now, we're not going to see in scholastic chess a deferred Steinitz variation. That doesn't happen too often. You could see this bishop to c5 here. An intuitive move, you might not know it. If you were the white pieces, just castle. And on knight f6, then you can always just play d3 just to keep things protected. But c3 is very playable. Knight takes here would not be a good idea. Queen e2 strong as an answer to that. So, let's go look at a few other possibilities. One of those other possibilities is this, just to directly defend the pawn. You're going to play d4 immediately. d7, knight c3, knight f6 will castle. White is getting castled quickly and is getting his minor pieces out easily. Let's look at this variation. We could play knight takes. We could castle, but I would recommend to play c3. Now on knight f6, you could just play d3. So that's what I would recommend here. Black castles, and then we'll castle too. This bishop will almost always end up back here at c2 after being at b3 maybe for a while. Let's look at the Casio. And again, that comes from where we have this position, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. White plays the Ruy Lopez, and then black goes here. It's probably obvious that he intends to recapture with his knight in the event of bishop takes knight so that he doesn't double any pawns. And so he would also keep his e-pawn guarded. I recommend that white castles, and then if g6, c3, bishop g7, and white plays d4 anyway. The move white is always striving to eventually get. Well, let's look at another way to play. You could play g6. Now you don't need to remember all of these the very first time. But this is about all you need to remember to get started. And then you'll learn more about what to do in these lines once you start playing them. Let's see, there's one way of playing here that I don't think I've mentioned, and this is the so-called bird variation. Not really a great move. I recommend for white to just trade, and then you can play d3 or castles. Bishop c5 will definitely play d3. And this is pretty obviously good for white. White has no worries here. This should be really about all you need to get started. Just this basic main line here. And let's look at the main line. Bishop c5 is not played as often, where we castle to re-threaten the pawn. If it were white to move now, let's say black makes some nothing move, and then white could win a pawn, because now this doesn't work, because white can go here. I hope you see why black cannot or should not take the e-pawn. Yes, it would be because of the pin to the king on the e-file. So the queen just has to go away, and this pawn will be nice and safe and sound. He'll play d3 next. Okay, so we'll go back and look at some of the other popular variations. There was the Berlin variation, which went like so. And we had the Schliemann variation, where I say get a new piece out. And if he trades, you can go here. There's another move that black could try that might be scary to some folks, which is to go here. However, that leaves this knight pinned. So knight takes c5 is actually a good option. Make sure you fully understand this before you move on. Stop the video if you need to. Okay, now again we'll look at the Casio, castles. If he plays the cordel, or called also the classical defense, play c3 with an eye to playing d3 or d4 soon. d6, the Steinitz, you can just play d4 and continue this way. And on this, we just trade knights and go here. Okay, so at this point, I want to show you a complete game from the Ruy Lopez, and I would encourage you to look for more sophisticated, more lengthy, and more detailed videos on the Ruy Lopez on YouTube, especially any that come from Funmaster Mike from chess.com. But there's a lot of good openings knowledge now on YouTube, so you can search around and always be suspicious and skeptical. So here's one such game. This is Fischer-Spassky from their 72 match in Reykjavik, Iceland. This is the match that Fischer won 12.5 to 8.5 and got him the world championship. So it went on as such. And with this move, black actually guards the e-pawn, because now if takes, the queen can come here and will win the pawn, because at the end there will be no pin because the bishop is in the way. So if you want, run the video back, listen to what I just said again, look at this position, work it out yourself on a board. Very important to be able to do that without moving the pieces. Okay, white renews pawn. So black must prevent bishop takes knight, which he does. White, of course, saves his bishop. Neither player has done any thinking at all yet. d6. By the way, here, if black were to instead castle, interested in playing the so-called Marshall Gambit with d5, I would recommend just play h3 here. But anyway, this will go past move 6 just because we're going to see the whole game. So c3 is so that black can't play here and trade a knight for a bishop by force. Now the bishop has somewhere to go. c3 also supports d4, or is ready to after d3. White plays h, this pin by a bishop coming to g4. That'll allow white to have better control of d4. And now this insane looking move, much more common is knight to a5. But you'll notice in both cases the black knight makes several moves, and in both cases so does the white bishop. So I rather like the so-called Breyer variation that actually happened in the game. But you should know how to deal with the knight a5 variation. Okay, so in this one, he now plays to d4. And of course the knight relocates. White guards e4 one more time. Black now has attack, so it's as if it's a loose piece. White now defends it for the third time, so any of his 3 attackers can move, as he will then still have 2 defenders against black's 2 attackers. Okay, black is going to eventually hit the white e-pawn on e4, and now white sort of binds c5, And as usual, the bishop could even fianchetto. This d2 knight in the Ruy, it likes to go to f1, g3, and f5. Black will sometimes play g6 after the knight gets to g3 just to prevent it from going to f5. So let's keep going with this game. And then he went here. And then he moved forward. Move back again. And played here. And we'll stop there to make this video a reasonable length. Keep it less than 16 minutes. This is Chris Goldthorpe again from chesschesschess.com. See you soon.